The Billings livestock auction was a storm of dust and noise, metal gates clanging, cattle lowing, and buyers shouting bids over the auctioneer's thunderous voice. Amid the chaos, a German shepherd limped through a side gate, unnoticed at first. Mud-stained fur clung to his ribs, a twisted hind leg dragged behind, and a faded chain scar circled his neck. His amber eyes, dull but unyielding, scanned the crowd as he stood trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of existence. The auctioneer faltered, his usual rhythm breaking. "Male German shepherd, no papers, no bids yet," he called, voice flat. Whispers rippled through the barn. Broken. Unfixable. A burden. No hands rose. The crowd's indifference was a heavier chain than the one he'd worn. The dog didn't bark or beg. He just held his ground, as if he knew his fate was being written in the silence. Elijah Kane stood at the back, a stranger to most, his leather jacket worn thin, boots caked with Montana mud. Silver streaked his hair, and a scar traced his jaw like a story he never told. He hadn't come for a dog. He'd come to blend into the noise, to drown out the memories that clung to him like damp pine. But something about the dog's stillness, the way he refused to collapse under the crowd's dismissal, caught Elijah's eye. It wasn't pity, it was recognition. The dog's eyes held a flicker, like an ember refusing to die, and it stirred something in Elijah he'd buried long ago. As the auctioneer raised his gavel, ready to move on, Elijah's hand lifted, calm and deliberate. Heads turned, murmurs followed. No one knew him, but his single nod carried a weight that silenced the room. The gavel fell. Sold. Elijah walked down the aisle, unhurried, ignoring the stares. He knelt beside the dog, who raised his head, legs wobbling but eyes locked on the man. Elijah didn't grab or pull. He placed an open hand on the dog's shoulder, patient. The dog leaned into the touch, a slight shift, as if testing whether kindness could be real. The crowd felt it, a quiet moment that cut through the auction's chaos. Someone's phone caught it, a man and a dog, still and silent in the dust. It would go viral later, but in that moment it was just them, just... Elijah didn't know the dog's past, but he felt it, heavy as his own. Why this dog? Because in those amber eyes, Elijah saw a mirror of his own guilt, a chance to step towards something he'd run from for years. The dog, later named Rook, wasn't just a rescue, he was a call to reckoning. Elijah carried Rook to his truck, the dog's trembling body light in his arms. The old pickup groaned as they left the auction yard, the dog curled in the bed, eyes half closed but never fully, asleep. Every jolt made him flinch, expecting cruelty. Elijah's hands gripped the wheel, his eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. He didn't speak, but his mind churned. He hadn't planned this, hadn't wanted a dog, but something about Rook's refusal to break pulled him in. The cabin waited in Laurel, a relic half swallowed by pines, where Elijah lived alone, surrounded by silence and a past he didn't share. Tonight that silence would shift. As they drove, the rust-colored trees of autumn blurred past, and Elijah felt the weight of a choice he couldn't yet name. Rook wasn't just a dog. He was a tether to a truth Elijah had buried, and the road ahead would force him to face it. The cabin stood on the edge of Laurel, where pine met silence, a place where no one came unless they were lost. Elijah carried Rook inside, the dog's body trembling but unresisting, as if afraid to disturb a ghost. He laid him on a flannel blanket by the hearth, stoking the fire until warmth curled through the room. Rook's eyes, wide and watchful, tracked every move, every step, every sigh, every glint of metal. It wasn't fear but defense, a lesson learned from a world that turned cruel without warning. Elijah cooked a simple stew, the smell of meat filling the air, but Rook didn't eat. He just watched, ribs sharp under patchy fur, as if waiting for permission to exist. Elijah sat across from him, not pushing, not commanding. "Rook," he whispered, testing the name. The dog's ears twitched, a flicker of curiosity or recognition. Elijah tried again, softer. "Rook, that's you." The silence shifted, like the wind outside rethinking the night's cold. For hours they sat, man and dog, the fire crackling as the only sound. When a log snapped, Rook flinched, body tensing. Elijah didn't move, just pulled a blanket closer, his hand resting near but not touching. Rook stared at that hand, then shifted an inch, his paw brushing Elijah's fingers. It was fragile, a moment so small it could break under its own weight. But it was enough. Two lives, dragged through pain, found each other in the quiet. Morning came with frost on the windows, the forest still asleep. Elijah woke to warmth at his side. Rook had moved closer in the night, curling near the fire and the man who demanded nothing. It wasn't trust, not yet, but a beginning. Elijah set out food, chicken, rice, bone broth. But Rook only ate when he. Elijah sat beside him, close enough to feel safe, far enough to feel free. The dog paused between bites, eyeing Elijah, bracing for a yell or a raised hand that never came. Days passed, and a rhythm emerged. Rook's limp didn't improve, but his eyes grew sharper, less guarded. Elijah noticed the flinches. At a rattling chain, a dropped bowl, a uniform glimpsed through the window. These weren't random, they were scars woven into Rook's nerves. One afternoon, while brushing Rook's matted fur, Elijah's hand grazed the dog's hind leg. Rook spun, snarling, not with aggression but terror, a low growl warning of a past that hadn't let go. Elijah froze, the brush falling. He knelt, palm up, and waited. 10 minutes passed before Rook stepped forward, snout pressing into Elijah's hand, a surrender born of exhaustion. That night, Elijah found the marks. Small, circular burns hidden under fur, deliberate and cruel. His breath caught, anger rising, like a tide. He closed his eyes, anchoring himself against the urge to act recklessly. The dog's past wasn't just pain, it was a pattern, a story of intentional harm. Elijah pulled out a leather-bound journal, writing fragments of memory. Names, places, questions. Why didn't I say something? The words spilled fast, a confession to no one but himself. Rook whimpered in his sleep, trapped in nightmares. Elijah knelt beside him, whispering, "You're not there anymore." The dog settled, but the questions lingered, heavy as smoke. Elijah's secret, his silence during his time working for Here. A man named Everett Roar was starting to crack, and Rook's presence was the wedge. The silence in Elijah's cabin was heavy, not peaceful, as if the air held secrets it wouldn't share. Just after midnight, 3 slow knocks broke the quiet. Elijah and Rook lifted their heads, alert, like soldiers on instinct. At the door stood Deputy Marshal Lance Dwyer, his badge glinting under the porch light. "Evening," he said, voice low. "Break in at the old Wilcox Ranch. Thought you'd want to know. You shoot horses there, didn't you?" Elijah's face didn't change, but Rook stepped between them, ears back, body tense. The dog didn't react to Dwyer, but to the name, Wilcox. Dwyer left a card and vanished into the night. Elijah locked the door, chain and bolt, and stood still, breathing hard. Rook watched, waiting for something to break. In the shed, Elijah uncovered a crate under a tarp, its contents untouched for years. An army patch, a photo of a younger Elijah with another German shepherd, a burned collar, and documents with the Wilcox name. His hand curled into a fist. He'd worked there, heard the barking from locked sheds, and walked away. The dog knew the crate's weight before Elijah opened it. By morning, they were driving to the Wilcox Ranch, the truck creaking through Custer National Forest. Rook sat in the passenger seat, eyes scanning the horizon, body alert. The ranch appeared like a ghost. Faded fences, cracked windows, barns, collapsing. It wasn't just decay. It felt abandoned in haste, hiding something no one dared name. Rook led the way, ignoring the corral, moving to an overgrown clearing. He stopped, ears dropping, body crouching. He sniffed the dirt, pawed it, and looked at Elijah. Shallow depressions marked the earth, not graves, but erasures. Elijah knelt, touching the cold ground. "Is this it?" he whispered. Rook exhaled, sitting beside him. The air thickened with memory. Barns, sounds, things Elijah hadn't stopped. The dog leaned against him, a quiet forgiveness he didn't deserve. As they turned back, a shadow moved near the barn, vanishing behind rotted siding. Rook growled low and guttural, halting Elijah. He didn't chase. Instead, he wrote 3 words in a notepad: "It's not over." Back at the cabin, Elijah gathered old contacts: ranchers, auctioneers, people who knew the livestock industry's underbelly. The fire crackled as Rook curled on the rug facing Elijah, not the door. They were a unit now, bound by a mission. The Wilcox Ranch wasn't just a place. It was a key to Elijah's secret, his complicity in a world of cruelty he'd ignored. Rook's reaction to the name confirmed it. The dog wasn't just a victim, but a witness. Elijah's choice to save him was no accident. It was a pull toward accountability, a chance to face the pain he'd fled. The road ahead wasn't about healing. It was about answers, and the truth was clawing its way out. Elijah drove to Bozeman, the landscape flattening as his grip tightened on the wheel. Rook sat tall, eyes scanning like he knew the destination. The vet clinic was a place Elijah hadn't visited in years, not since he and Alina Merrick parted ways after too much silence. The receptionist stiffened at his arrival, calling for Dr. Merrick without asking his name. Alina appeared, sleeves rolled, eyes sharp, wiping her hands. She didn't smile or question. Her gaze dropped to Rook, who sat tense, watching them both. Alina crouched, her hand near his neck. He didn't flinch, a sign something had shifted. "Elijah," she said, standing. "Let's take a look." In the exam room, Rook let Alina lift his paw, her hands tracing his ribs. When she parted the fur on his flank, she froze. "These aren't from a fence," she muttered. "Intentional." Elijah's heart slowed. "What do you mean?" Alina's eyes stayed on the dog. "Burn rings, old scar tissue, shock prods." The words landed like stones. Elijah's hands clenched, memories of backcountry ranches surfacing, rumors of dogs broken for sport. Alina pulled up a scan, revealing a chip. The monitor blinked, pulling a record from a dusty digital trail. Yellowstone County, a livestock facility closed 5 years ago, tied to Everett Roar. Elijah froze. Roar, the man he'd worked for, whose cages he'd ignored. Rook turned, eyes meeting Elijah's as if saying, "You knew." Alina saw Elijah unraveling but said nothing. He stood, voice low. "Keep the scan. Don't erase anything." Outside, the wind howled. Elijah leaned against the truck, whispering a name, a place, a promise only Rook heard. The dog wasn't just a rescue. He was proof of a past Elijah couldn't outrun. Roar's name wasn't just a memory. It was a door to a time Elijah had shoot horses, heard screams, and done nothing. Saving Rook was his first step toward facing that silence. Back at the cabin, Elijah pulled out the crate again, sifting through IDs, photos, a paycheck stub with Roar's name. The dog watched, unflinching. They were bound now, not by trust but by truth. Elijah called Dwyer, laying out the story. No excuses, just facts. The deputy's face cracked at the photo from Rook's chip, a younger dog in a chain-link cage. "You bought him," Dwyer muttered. Elijah nodded. "Didn't know then. I do now." The drive back to the Wilcox Ranch was silent, the air electric with unspoken purpose. Rook sat tall, eyes on the road as if he'd walked this path before. Elijah's jaw was locked, hands tight on the wheel, guilt and fury burning in his chest. The gate hung crooked, rust scattering like ash. Rook stepped out, limping but determined, leading to the clearing. He dug, paws scraping dirt, until Elijah joined him. They uncovered a metal box, rusted and wrapped in rotting cloth. Inside were photos of caged dogs, ledgers, auction slips, and a list with Elijah's name. Shoeing, transport, no questions. A photo slipped out. Rook, younger, chained number 1479 on the kennel tag. Their eyes met, not accusing but knowing. Elijah packed the box and drove to the sheriff's office. Dwyer met him, face grim. "This is everything," Elijah said, dropping the bag. By evening, Roar's name spread like wildfire, warrants issued, case files reopened. The next morning, snow flurried over Bozeman as Elijah and Rook stepped out. People paused, some recognizing them from the viral auction video. Elijah looked at Rook. "Ready to go home?" A tail wag answered. They turned toward Livingston, to land Elijah had bought in secret, a place for healing, where no chains would touch a neck again. Rook would be its first guardian. Their story wasn't just survival, it was return, a bond that turned pain into purpose. Roar's trail was being hunted, but Elijah and Rook didn't look back. They'd already found their way.